Good morning. Dwayne here, Dry Creek Wrangler School. We'll see if I can get back on track again, putting videos out. I want to talk to you about something this morning. I want to tell you a little bit of a story, and maybe 2 or 3 stories, and I just want to see if I can help some young person a little bit. Now I'm going to be deliberately kind of vague on this story, and maybe not too vague because it's not about me, and I want to respect another man's privacy. But I think the story's worth telling. Tom and I just got back, as many of you know, from Wyoming, where we went up there and rode with a bunch of guys with At Ease Horsemanship. There was everybody there impressed me. A lot of guys with no experience, different physical not handicaps, but difficulties because of lack of experience. And everybody they were all troopers, man. They did great. But there was one young man on that ride that just thoroughly impressed me. This young man had been up there a year ago and was riding, and he had a horse accident, and he broke 10 ribs. Now, most of us who've been actively riding for years have broken ribs. I have. Most of the guys I know I have. But none of us have ever broke 10 ribs. But medically proven, he's got the x-rays, he broke 10 ribs. Punctured lung, one lung deflated. I think he lacerated or punctured his spleen. It was a bad wreck. And there happened to be a vehicle in the area that was close enough by to get him in the vehicle, get him down and get him to the hospital and save his life. It was a bad deal. This year, 1 year later, that young man was up there with us. He got on the same horse he was riding when that wreck happened last year. We went back up on that mountain and went to that spot. That young man rode that horse, the same horse, up the same mountain, and we rode to that spot 1 year later. Now, if you'd say, Dwayne, that's tough, I would agree. I would agree 1,000%, but I think most people don't understand the type of toughness that is. When in circles today, in young men and old men, when they talk about toughness, most of the time they talk about physical toughness. I want to tell you unequivocally, there is no such thing as physical toughness if there is no mental toughness. That young man had a courage and a mental toughness that if he did not have, all the physical healing in the world would not have helped. We have been, and we've discussed it on this channel, and it's been discussed quite a bit, in different places, on social media and stuff. There's been an epidemic of weak men in this country for a long time now. Young men who were raised without dads or not raised like they should be by their dads, men who were raised by their mothers, men who bought into the garbage that culture and society has put out, this nonsense about toxic masculinity, which does not exist. There is no such thing. There's no more toxic masculinity than there is toxic femininity. There's just toxic humans, okay? And being tough, being a man in and of itself, does not make you toxic. And so there are men who begin to see that they've been lied to, and they come out and they're pursuing this, I want to be tough. But a lot of times they're pursuing it the wrong way. They're pursuing the wrong thing. Toughness is not tattoos. I'm not anti-tattoo. I don't have a problem with your tattoos. Don't care anything about it. Doesn't bother me a bit. So don't take this. Every time I mention tattoos, there's somebody gets on and gets real defensive. I don't care about your tattoos. Have them. All right. I've seen some really cool tattoos. But you see a man covered in tattoos, that doesn't make him a tough man. Toughness is not about how many push-ups you can do or what you can bench press or how far you can run. Toughness is in the mind. And your body can be the most perfect, the most conditioned specimen. But if you don't have a tough mind, if you don't have a toughness of the mind, if you don't have a tough will, you're not tough. It's all pointless. So if someone were to come to me and say, Dwayne, how do I was not raised to be a tough man. Where do I start? You start with your mind. You start with your mind. And how do you start with your mind? You put yourself in tough situations that you can overcome, but it ain't easy. Because your mind and your will always quit before your body does. People who quit, you're doing a run and you go so far and you stop, it's not because your body gave out. It's because your will and your mind said, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. You always work on your mind. I've told this before in other videos. When I went back to the police academy the second time, the Alaska State Trooper Academy in Alaska, I was 10 years older than the next oldest cadet. I was 49. Wasn't in great shape. And, but I went back. I wanted to do it. And that first week, they have this thing where they're gonna weed you out and they're gonna break you, just like the military. The Alaska State Trooper Academy is very paramilitary, like a lot of academies are these days. Our instructors we had ex Marine Corps drill sergeants. We had an ex Navy SEAL. They were tough guys. So we're in the gym and working out. And this is Hell Week. It's not like this the whole academy, but that first week. And they got us doing push-ups, blow the whistle, scream, you flip over on your backs and do leg lifts, or then you jump up and do burpees, the whole thing, and see who we can break. And so we're lined up and we're doing push-ups, and I'm at the point, I'm almost 50, and on a good day at that time I could do about 30 push-ups. That's not very many push-ups, but I had worked my way up to that point. And we were way past 30. And so I'm like, I'd get 2 and I'd get halfway up and then my arms would collapse and I'd have to turn my face sideways so I didn't smash my face against the floor. And then I'd get up and there was a young man beside me, I don't know, 26, 27 years old. And one of the instructors came over and dropped down beside him on his hands and knees and got right in his face and started screaming at him. Just screaming at him. And so I'm like, well, I'm next, but I'm just going to keep going. And so I'd come up and then I'd collapse and I'd do a cheap push up and get all the way up and then lower myself down until I collapse. And then, I would just going, whatever I could do, that's what I did. And after a little bit, the instructor got up from this kid and walked around me and went to this kid over here and dropped on his knees and started screaming at him. He just completely left me alone. And I thought at first, well, it's because I'm old, and he's just being respectful to the old guy. But I realized as we went along, what they were working on was the mental toughness of this kid. And he saw the old guy is not in the same physical condition as these kids. But there ain't nothing wrong with his heart. And I don't mean my physical pump. I mean, my mind was like, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And I just kept at it. And eventually, as most of you know who've been on here for a while, we were doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did a backwards tactical roll and something snapped in my neck. By the end of the day, I was in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. And I had almost severed my spinal cord. the vertebrae, which not from that incident, but my vertebrae were off-centered and were pinching my spinal cord. It was a pretty bad deal. And so the commandant of the academy called me in and said, "You've got something these kids don't have, and that's life experience and a mental toughness." And he said, "We don't want to lose you." He said, "So we've never done this before and we never do this, but I'm going to send you to another specialist to get their opinion." My original doctor had said, you're done. I cannot sign you off medically to continue what you're doing. The commandant said, "We're going to get another opinion." Now, if this second opinion agrees with the first doctor, then legally there's nothing we can do. We have to send you home. And I said, okay. So they took me to a second opinion, and they did their test, and they come back, and they said, she said, "I don't agree with the first doctor." She said, "But I don't agree, you're in a lot worse shape than he said you were. There's no way I can sign off on this." So we went back to the academy, and the commandant and the instructors came in and said, "Man, legally there's nothing we can do. Okay, you have to go home." So I went up in the dorm, and I was packing. There's nothing I could do. And the one instructor that had been a Marine DI came running up the stairs, and he came in the room. He said, "I only got a second. I got to get back down to class. But I just wanted you to know that we know that it wasn't your heart that quit. Your body betrayed you. And if you ever get that fixed and you ever want to come back to this academy, you are more than welcome." That's mental toughness. Mental toughness is not physical strength. Mental toughness is, I'm not going to quit. It hurts, but I'm not going to quit. Oh, it's hurting worse. I'm not going to quit. Oh, I don't know. I've never experienced pain and discomfort at this level, but I'm not going to quit. I don't know if I can go any further, but I'm not going to quit. That's not physical toughness, folks. That's mental toughness. And without mental toughness, physical toughness doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. When I was way younger, I had bought a horse from the Four Corners area in Colorado, Smoky Blue, and we were living on Angel Ranch on top of Poncha Pass outside of Salida, Colorado. And there were 3 corrals that were the gates open, so it was all 3. And I went out and saddled him up, stepped up in the saddle, and I was out there by myself, and he broke in half. Now, again, those of you know here what we're doing, and you know me, you know I can't ride bucking horses. I ain't a bronc rider. And he jumped around a bit, and he piled me up good. I got up and went over and caught him and stepped back on, and he bucked through all 3 of them corrals and threw me into the poles. And I got up, dragged myself over there, got back on him, and he bucked through all 3 of those corrals again and piled me up into a fence post. And I got up that next time, and I caught him, and I stood there for a minute leaning on that saddle. Now, my leg wasn't broke, my arm wasn't broke, my ribs wasn't broke, and my head weren't broke. But I had figured I about had enough of this nonsense. So when I leaned there on the saddle for a minute, and what was I doing? Was I gathering my physical strength, my physical toughness? No. It's like, I can't quit. I'm committed. I have to finish this. I don't know how much more I have left, but I've got to finish it. And I climbed back up in the saddle again, and he didn't buck. And so I rode him around. I rode him around that corral for a bit. And then I got off and took the saddle off and put him up. My body had not quit, but my will had said, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And I had to summon up a mental toughness to continue. I had the physical resources to continue and do it again. But I don't know if you've ever been bucked off the same horse 3 times in a row before, but it's easy to say, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. But I kept doing it. And I was a really young man at that. I was married and had 3 little kids, but I was still only, I don't know, 27, 28, something like that. That made a big difference in the rest of my life. That was a watershed moment. That was a touchstone moment for me. When I was on the way to Idaho, before that, and to go packing in the mountains to go to school, and I arrived and there wasn't anybody there to meet me, and my box with my saddle, my chaps, and all my gear had been stolen, and I was out of money. It was like, I can make a phone call and I can get a ticket back home. But I looked at the girl behind the counter. I said, which way to Chalice, Idaho? And she pointed up the road, and I picked up my stuff and started walking. Mental toughness. You will get nowhere in life. Nowhere in life. If your mental toughness does not exceed your physical toughness. You say, Dwayne, marital relationships don't work. It's because you're not mentally tough. You can't endure the hard times. You throw in the towel too quick, too easy. You don't try to, let's try one more thing and see if we can fix this. Let's endure one more thing. Let's go through one more thing. One more thing. Your mental toughness has to exceed your physical toughness. No matter how physically tough you are, if your mental toughness does not exceed that by a small bit, you'll lose every time. Because your mind will fail you before your body ever does. Your will fail you before your body ever does. So your will and your mind has to be tougher to go a little bit further than your body can. And that's how you'll succeed. That's how you make it. All right? Hope it helps you. Be logical. Be reasonable. Be safe. Be tough. And have fun. And you can do it if you don't quit. And you won't quit if you're tough of mind. We'll catch you guys next time.